This is a micro hit of the film against the pipe. The better and more airtight the entire system is, the less the fan works. We multiply by 4 for 24 hours. Its consumption is 150 watts. Here is the north side, and cold comes from air. This is how our side ventilation works. This thing swings quite strongly. Let's enter the greenhouse. You see, it's not even connected yet. The installation is still ongoing. You can open this thing. The valve will work too. The mist system. Let's turn it off. The installation is still ongoing. You see, all the wires are sticking out as if they are about to be flooded. 80 meters. It's like a sail. It can break. We gradually smooth out these fluctuations inertially. It is very functional. Designed for only 3-4 months of work per year. Good day, dear friends. We continue to increase the areas of closed ground, and today we decided to walk through one of our greenhouses, which stands among various other greenhouse options from different manufacturers, to see what to pay attention to. If you do it yourself, what aspects should you focus on? Here is one of our structures that we built, with a width of 10 meters and a length of about 105 meters. It consists, as it were, of a vestibule in the middle, and 2 independent greenhouses diverge in different directions. This greenhouse is designed for double inflation. By the way, some ask, what greenhouse is better? Can a greenhouse be made without inflation, or can 2 films be used without inflation? The nuance here is that one of the greenhouses has a double film, but it is deflated. What happens is that the film has the property of inflating and deflating, so even when we cover one greenhouse during the day and another at night, you can immediately see how different they are. Because when we cover the greenhouse during the day, the temperature regime is one, and at night, when we cover it, the temperature regime is different. It covers completely in the same way, that is, the film is thrown on without tension and then fixed with clamping strips with a zigzag. Then these 2 greenhouses are called differently because the daytime film was stretched. When we covered it, it took one form, and the nighttime film, when we fixed it, during the day, it stretched, and it turns out it inflated more. Therefore, the time of covering the greenhouse has a significant impact. What is the nuance of inflation? When our film expands and contracts, due to inflation, we can always stretch the film. That is, if our film is stretched over time, we simply increase the inflation time more, and it inflates. In the end, it is always tight. Here, the film is inflated, and now there is a fairly strong wind, so plus minus, it sways. When the film is inflated, it should be like a drum, it should not go in waves. When the film is deflated, it goes in waves, and each wave is a micro hit of the film against the pipe. This happens 1,000 times a day, and because of this, it rubs, beats, and wears out faster. So, the film should be fixed, let's say, a harsh word, but there is no other way to put it fixed tightly to the structure. It should not sway along the structure, it should be fixed in place. The wind blows, and if you walk through our greenhouse, it goes through the film. If the film is fixed, it holds, it doesn't move anywhere. There is no friction, no hits, so the film must be firmly held on the structure. We go to the film. We have 2 films fixed with springs. Due to this, we achieve airtightness. The film is slightly inflated. We haven't adjusted it fully yet. This part is inflated. The sidewalls are also inflated, and springs can be added to limit the inflation more. By the way, on one of the greenhouses, I'll show you nuances. Some people simply bury the lower part of the film. Here, the film is simply buried in soil. In the end, this does not allow creating airtight connections between 2 films. The lower profile at the bottom should always fix the film here. There is also the same thing. There is a clip, it is fixed with a film, and due to this, it inflates. The better and more airtight the whole system is, the less the fans work. Some ask how much power the fan needs to inflate such a greenhouse 10 by 50. Our fan here is not the most powerful. It's an ordinary duct fan with a power of about 80 watts. It works for 1 minute and rests for 10 minutes. In an hour, it consumes 8 watts, and accordingly, in a day, multiplied by 4, it consumes 150 watts. Thanks to this, the greenhouse holds heat significantly better, almost twice as much better than without inflation. If it's a single-layer film, it holds heat at least twice as poorly as a double-layer film. The dome ends should be inflated. Transitions between all of these, such as these transitions, allow air to circulate from one area to another. You can install them with valves or without valves. It all depends on how the inflation system is set up. There is a system with valves, where air comes in and is fixed, and there is one without valves, where the system is evenly distributed. The ventilation issue is relevant not only in the summer but also in the winter because without proper ventilation, in February, the sun can come out, heat the greenhouse, and the excess temperature can rise to 35 degrees. Ventilation includes lateral and end ventilation, but it is not needed here. There is upper ventilation. Here, a system of both lateral and upper ventilation is used. What does this allow? Air enters from the side, as you can see, not at the very bottom to avoid creating a draft, but slightly above. The height depends on the specific tasks, but generally, lateral ventilation can start from 20–30 centimeters above to ensure that the incoming air does not impact the root system at the bottom of the plants. The air comes in and pushes out all the hot air through the upper ventilation. This creates air circulation, maintaining a comfortable temperature inside the greenhouse. Lateral ventilation can be manual, as in this case. In manual mode, we can open this side panel along its entire length. One thing to note is that there should be a mosquito net. Some skip the mosquito net, but it serves a purpose. If you take a closer look, the camera does not allow insects and pests to enter the greenhouse. Often, people ask whether it's necessary to add a mosquito net to upper ventilation. In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. The thing is, insects don't usually fly high, so the main concern is the side panels. We always recommend sealing the side panels with mosquito nets. What are these blue strips? They are limiters and can be in the form of a rope or a profile. What do they prevent? If there's wind, this part swings quite a bit. If there's wind and lateral ventilation on both sides, there can be a strong impact. These limiters prevent the side part from swinging too much or flying off due to the wind. Usually, greenhouses are placed in open fields, where there's often strong wind. By the way, there's one thing. We additionally inflate the lower part to prevent heat loss. Let me show you how others do it. I wouldn't recommend doing it this way. Here, there's lateral ventilation, but without a mosquito net, and the lower part is just one layer. It's fixed with wire here, and it doesn't inflate. It's like a single layer buried in the ground. What is the nuance? Here is the north side. The cold comes from here, so if we have such a thin layer of film here, it doesn't work, especially since it is raised by 30–40 centimeters. Well, if it were 10–20 centimeters, it could be dug up and filled up, but if the film sticks out above the ground quite high, then we need to either insulate it or inflate it so that we do not lose heat. Because in the lower part of the north, the cold will blow from there to here, and it will always be a cold part. We lose 10–15% of the working space in the greenhouse. Here is a breeze. If the greenhouse is not inflated, it starts to flap. That is, each flap is naturally a blow to the film. If we have a large space, it is better to inflate it so that it is not cold. Side ventilation should be sealed for the winter. That is, when we completely lower the side ventilation, this option is normal in the summer. That is, when it is already above 5 degrees Celsius at night, the side panel can be opened. When the temperature drops to 0 degrees Celsius at night, we lower our side panel and seal it for the winter. A spring is placed here, and this entire part is sealed, and it is also inflated further. If there is no clip here, but there is wire or something else, then it is quite difficult to make it all airtight. This is how our side ventilation works. By the way, there is another nuance. When the side panels are low to the ground, when the greenhouse is opened, the pressure inside the greenhouse is lower than the pressure outside. This causes dust and dirt to be sucked into the greenhouse. Therefore, side ventilation is a very important parameter for large greenhouses. It provides good ventilation for the greenhouse. For the summer, it is great. The temperature inside the greenhouse is the same as the temperature outside, or even a little cooler. Our side panel is open, and we can open it all the way. In the winter, the bottom of the greenhouse is inflated to prevent heat loss. This is very important because every kilowatt of wasted energy affects the cost of production. As we said, this is a kind of vestibule group. One greenhouse goes from here, another greenhouse goes from there. So, it is divided into two parts. Installation is still underway. Barrels are being collected directly in the vestibule. The entire irrigation system will be installed here. 2 tanks will be connected in parallel for irrigation. The irrigation system is equipped with a Wi-Fi module, so we can control it with a remote control. So, we enter the greenhouse, and what is in the greenhouse? Upper ventilation, i.e. as we said, air comes and goes. Here, by the way, it is much more comfortable than outside. There is no such strong draft and wind. In principle, the air is moving, walking, so I would not say that it is hotter here. The greenhouse is completely ventilated. The heating system, thanks to the rigging group, thanks to the fact that our frame is made in the form of a pipe, all equipment is attached to the frame quite simply and easily. Here, by the way, are the fob nozzles, fob generators. After the installation, you can manually open the solenoid valve, and the system will start working, i.e. the valve is turned on manually thanks to the solenoid. So, our fog is working without a remote control, without anything. This system of fog is well suited for cucumbers and lettuce, but tomatoes do not like it. Fog is good for cooling the greenhouse. It immediately moisturizes, irrigates, and fertilizes, so it has quite an interesting functionality. And it turns off by turning the solenoid back. There is another way. You can open this little thing. The valve will also work, but the pressure in the system is checked. There are many zones. Everything is in order. 6 zones work on one part, 6 zones on the other, and the controller controls these 12 zones. We can independently open and close the shutters. People often ask if it is possible and necessary to automate the control of the upper shutters. The fact is that the temperature regime in which the shutters open and close can lead to the fact that we open the shutters when it is hot, but there is a strong wind outside. And it can lead to the fact that the shutters can break because they are quite a good sail. Consider 60 meters by 50 meters, 80 meters is like a sail. It can break. Despite the fact that there is a rather rigid mechanism, there is a shaft. On the shaft there are locks, bearings, and pushers with gears. When the motor is turned on through the reducer, it starts to transmit torque and the shutters go up. When the reverse is turned on, the motor starts to work in the opposite direction and the gears go down. So, here is the upper ventilation. However, if we open the shutters too wide in strong winds, they could break. When there is a strong wind, the shutters are only open halfway to prevent them from being blown in too much. This is the only problem we encountered. When the shutters are on one greenhouse, it is one thing, but when there is a vestibule between them, we need to make sure that it is also airtight. We enter the vestibule, where all the infrastructure is located, including the irrigation system. Then there is one greenhouse, then another greenhouse. It is very convenient and practical. I highly recommend insulating the perimeter of the greenhouse up to the height of the lower profile. This is usually 10, 20, or 30 centimeters. The insulation I used is polystyrene, but polyurethane foam is better. It is stiffer and more durable. This insulation actually blocks the cold air. I immediately felt the effect. You can increase the temperature by 1 or 2 degrees by insulating just the perimeter. Therefore, it is better to insulate the perimeter. If you are using a film greenhouse, make sure that the film is well stretched. It should not move. Every movement of the film is a micro movement against the metal, which can quickly wear out the film. Use mosquito netting to prevent insects and other unwanted pests from entering the greenhouse. When building a greenhouse, it is important to consider wind bracing. Wind bracing should be installed on the first section, in the middle, and at the end. This is to prevent the greenhouse from collapsing. I once saw a group of people start building a greenhouse. They put up all the trusses and then threw the purlins on. A strong wind came and blew the trusses down. According to the installation rules, the first truss should be installed first, then the second truss, and then the wind bracing should be installed. The wind bracing ties the greenhouse together. This prevents the first 2 arches from moving anywhere. They are firmly in place because the wind bracing prevents them from moving in both directions. By the way, there is a link to a video on how to make a greenhouse frame more durable and reliable. This is important because strong winds can be a problem, especially in areas with a variable climate. Therefore, our structure must withstand all these wind loads. Wind is a danger along with snow loads. The structure must not be afraid of the wind. In this case, it is made in the shape of a cone. This allows us to combine the carrying capacity of the arches, which is quite high, and the shape of a house. A house plus an arch equals such a greenhouse. This is a very good option. Snow falls well from it. There's a peak in upper ventilation that allows excess hot air to be thrown upwards. Not only hot air, but also excess moisture. For example, the humidity in this greenhouse is slightly higher than outside because the humidity is also higher due to watering. If there is no upper ventilation, the humidity is always significantly higher than with upper ventilation. Therefore, this factor is also important. The process here is natural soil cultivation and organics. Therefore, the fertilizers smell very pleasant, like cows in the village. But in principle, we know that this will be natural produce. Consider that the film on greenhouses should always be well stretched and there should be good ventilation. If a greenhouse is not well ventilated, it will be very inefficient and will only be functional for 3-4 months of the year. Even in February and March, ventilation is necessary. Why waste half of the warm period? After all, plants grow significantly better in a greenhouse with good microclimate than in open ground. There are fewer temperature fluctuations, there is irrigation, and if necessary, shading. All this allows you to get a significantly higher yield in a greenhouse than in open ground. We made the greenhouse slightly higher than standard, so its height is 5.5 meters. This is a very good parameter for tall plants. In principle, the optimal combination of width and height is 10:5. It makes no sense to make a very high greenhouse with a small width, because this will significantly increase heat loss. However, if we have a wide greenhouse, for example, if we put 10 such greenhouses in a row, then we can safely raise them up to 10 meters. In such a greenhouse, the climate will be significantly milder and it will smooth out temperature fluctuations even more during the day and night. The greenhouse is good at collecting heat, and when the sun comes out, there is a good greenhouse effect. However, as soon as the temperature drops, the film also loses heat very quickly. Therefore, if we have a large volume, then we will inertially smooth out these fluctuations. When the greenhouse cools down, it takes a very long time, and when the sun comes out, the greenhouse heats up very slowly. This is a good effect. In principle, these are the main parameters that I talked about. Pay attention to them when building a greenhouse. They may seem minor, but they have a significant impact. I would even call them secrets, because we have come to them through a certain period of experience and everything else. You can use them right away. I am Alexander, Eco Greenhouse. If you are interested in such designs, you can go to our website and choose the options yourself. We are waiting for your comments on all these parameters. Live in harmony with nature and the rhythm of progress. See you soon and good harvests to you.